So my research looks at why peace processes often fail to establish lasting peace after civil wars. So why it is that in the 10 to 15 years after a peace agreement is signed, you wouldn't necessarily call the situation that people live in peace because their lives are still characterised by insecurity, instability, fear, mistrust, and there's a sense that given the right trigger points, people might actually start killing each other in the streets again and the civil war might re-erupt.
My research is really informed by my personal experience of having survived the war in Bosnia. And what I do is collect narratives of fellow ordinary Bosnians, and in those narratives I trace memories of pre-war Bosnia. So essentially I create a little mosaic of stories about life in Bosnia before the war.
One of the biggest challenges to the establishment of lasting peace after a peace agreement is that everyone has very high hopes that that piece of paper where groups have signed and said we're going to put down our weapons, there is a peace settlement, that actually doesn't mean a lot. It means that for a moment there is an agreement to put down the weapons and to work towards establishing a new post-war system of governance and security and justice and so on. But those processes of designing new constitutions, of holding elections, of holding people accountable for war crimes, they're deeply political and they're deeply controversial. And one of the challenges is that people see the peace agreement and hope that that controversy won't be there and that people will be committed to peace, that everyone in the community will be working towards peace, and that's just not the case.
Treaties do not solve the bigger, complex issues. The piece of paper in the Bosnian case, and in many cases, has done nothing for the people who have experienced the conflict.
The international community tends to see them as very much top-down processes. There's a piece of paper that says people are going to put down their weapons under certain conditions, but they don't necessarily address those individual dynamics or the incentives that make people choose to use violence or choose to support the peace process.
So we can't separate the politics in post-conflict societies from the everyday realities of simple, ordinary folk, because their lives do not exist outside of the political discourse. Their lives are dictated by the political discourse. So the poor person has got nowhere to go because they don't have a job, they're very hungry, probably, they're trying to just survive their everyday. There is no time in that space to think about bigger pictures. That is a privilege.
The levels of mistrust and fear that persist in post-war societies are greatly underestimated by the international community. There is an assumption that when a peace agreement is signed, everyone will work towards peace because everyone should want peace. But actually everyone doesn't want peace. There are many people in post-war situations who actually have more to gain from ongoing insecurity or ongoing violence and have a lot to fear from peaceful systems. They may fear, for instance, that their interests are not going to be looked after in the new system if a member of one of the groups that they were fighting against is in charge of the country. So one of the biggest reasons why peace processes fail is that they don't address those dynamics within communities, the political factors, the social factors, the economic factors that mean people don't trust peace and might actually benefit more or decide that their interests are better served by ongoing violence.
I don't know what peace means and what it looks like. And I think that no one who has had peace taken away from them can really know what it feels, what it should feel like again. Because once the trust is broken and the peace is taken away, it's actually really difficult to articulate it.
Re-establishing trust between formerly warring communities is really difficult, and it requires a very dynamic political process which can't just be led by the international community. It really has to be led by the community leaders, religious leaders, political leaders in the society that's actually transitioning from war to peace in order to be effective. If we look around the world, there are civil wars raging throughout the Middle East. There are civil wars reigniting in countries that have been peaceful, nominally peaceful for a number of years. There's no sign that civil wars are abating.
We need to try something different, because obviously what we're doing is failing big time. It's not working. Because the statistics speak against us, both academically, politically, socially. So time to do something different.
I hope that my research gives policymakers and practitioners a better understanding of how they can contribute to lasting peace and how they can better build lasting peace in the environments in which they operate. I hope also that that means that the people who have lived through civil wars, who've suffered enormously as a result of living through civil wars, can enjoy lives where they feel safe, where they feel like they can pursue their interests, where they can do the things that they're passionate about, and where, on a really basic level, their children can go to school safely. I think that it's possible for research to have those impacts, and I also think that it's our responsibility as researchers to create that sort of positive change in the world.